Hi, I'm Josh, the founder of the Accountability Group, and I am Josh in recovery, still battling vigilantly the diseases of addiction and mental health. Today we'll be reading out of Touchstones, and it is August 5th, even though it is August 13th. As well, many of you know, I am in the process of moving and will finally be in my new digs by the 29th of August, so all of this will kind of switch up and change, in terms of like this majestic scenery behind me. But yeah, let's jump right into it. So Touchstones, August 5th. The whole problem is to establish communication with oneself. E.B. White. We are like many faceted gemstones. Each side represents a different aspect of ourselves. We have our emotional sides with different feelings and responses. We have our competencies and strengths, hopes and desires, destructiveness and negativity, self-doubts and resentments. We also possess a drive for power and knowledge, a desire to serve, and a wish to connect with others. Our spiritual masculinity requires that we know our many sides. We need to work relationships with our thoughts and feelings so that we can be appreciated, accepted, and understood. When we tell our story in a meeting, we let others know us. We get to know ourselves better. When we are spontaneous in what we say or do, we communicate with ourselves. We discover ourselves through meditation, journal writing, playfulness, physical activity, and conversations with others. In that way, we become more honest. Today, I will use my lines of communication with myself and become more self-accepting and more honest. Well, as many of you have heard before, honesty has never really been a problem for me. It's probably been more of a negative. If there was a ledger, like, I don't know if my higher power has a ledger of my honesty. But for me, it was like, I at 20 told my closest family and friends, even like some of my like college buddies and professors, that I'm an addict. Like, that's kind of wild to think about it, like now, like looking back on it, because like there was so much stigmatization, and there still is now, about substance abuse and mental health, that like for me to just come out and point blank say that, it just kind of makes me think. But then I also think about the negative aspect of it, is that because I was so honest in that regard, I would then be like, well, what'd you expect? I told you I was an addict. I was clearly gonna use. Like, that was a given, like, duh, like, that probably aged myself by saying that. But yeah, no, it's just it's an interesting read, mainly because there's this weird thing that I do, and I think I've already expressed it before, but like, I kind of stand in the mirror and I'm more honest with myself, because I have a lot of problems with self-love, self-resentment, self-flagellation. Just like, I'm very hard on myself. Like, I think this might be the case for most addicts, and I don't want to quantify or like where you are on the spectrum or ladder of addiction or mental health. I mean, because I take a lot, like I have my own mini pharmacy of stuff for mental health, and then I also struggle with AA and NA, which is why I'm in those fellowships. But like, for me, when it gets bad, it gets really, really bad. And since they're co-occurring disorders, it's like if one gets really out of whack, it's really easy for the other one to get out of whack. So that aspect of being honest through communication, talking to my sponsor, my grand sponsor, talking to people at the fellowship, making sure that I'm doing all of those things are absolutely critical for me. And yeah, it is true that we are multifaceted. Like, I am not going to pigeonhole myself into the category of, hi, I'm Josh, I'm an addict, or hi, I'm Josh, I'm an alcoholic. That's not the only thing I am. That's why I have this long-winded way of saying, hi, I'm Josh, I'm in recovery, battling against the diseases of addiction and mental health, because that's the truth. I'm also a son, a friend, a student, a teacher, or educator rather, because I think there's a difference between the two, but that's a conversation for a different time. You know, I like playing soccer and golf and going to the beach and traveling and photography, black and white photography in particular. And I like using dark rooms, shooting on old school 35mm, which is difficult to find these days. Most people are all a DSLR or mirrorless cameras or, you know, things like that. They have different rigs. What I'm using right now, obviously, is a DSLR. That way you can see this in both SD and HD, but it is what it is. I have multiple others like Canon EOSs and others that require actual 35mm tape, film rather. So yeah, so that's kind of like my strength in terms of, you know, being more self-accepting and being kinder to myself, more self-care. I don't really have to worry too much about the honesty part because unfortunately I am very candid and blunt and sometimes hard to work with because I have such high expectations for myself and I don't necessarily need other people that I work with to match that level of energy, but I at least need them to be productive. I prefer people that are productive over people that are busy. A good idea can come from a janitor and I'll run with it. It doesn't need to come from the head of product development or my lead product designer or any of those individuals. Like, I talk to every single person, know their names, know their families, know about them. I write thank you cards because I'm old school. I write birthday cards, old school. It's things of that nature that, like, for me, I don't know if it's because I'm an old soul, even though I'm young, or young, I don't know how you want to describe it. But yeah, honesty hasn't been an issue for me, but self-acceptance, self-love, those are still hard to this day, which is why I do those weird positive affirmations that my grant sponsor and sponsor have told me to do, and I'm going to be doing those here in a little bit, and it's going to be super awkward. Not as awkward as the first time that I did it, like 2 weeks ago, but I'm getting better at it. Anyway, that's kind of my strength, and my hope for you, in all honesty, is be a little bit kinder to yourself, you know, forgive yourself. The negative self-talk can really be like this horrible Spotify playlist of greatest hits of all the bad things that we did, and we're not bad people trying to be good, we're sick people trying to get well. And accepting yourself for who you are and self-love and recovery has been the hardest journey that I've ever been on. Early recovery was very difficult for me. Middle recovery was slightly less difficult. Where I'm at now, I don't know what you would actually call it, but like, for whatever reason, something clicked. But I am ever vigilant that like it is real easy for that to go left. But that's what I would really, really want for you, is to understand self-compassion, to forgive yourself, to understand that we're humans and we make mistakes, to not dwell on the past because that causes depression, do not future trip because that causes anxiety. All we have is this moment right now. We have the present. We have these 24 hours to fight for. And you can choose to make the right choice or you can choose to make the wrong choice. But ultimately, that choice is yours, and it comes down to intentional willingness. How intentionally willing are you to remain sober and remain in recovery? For me, that's paramount. My recovery and sobriety is here, and everything else will fall into place. But that is number one for me. My sobriety has not lost me jobs. It has not cost me a marriage. It has not done anything that it easily could have done. It definitely has not caused death yet, thank goodness. Because bad things happen in sobriety. It happens. So yeah, I would really wish for you some kindness, some self-acceptance, some forgiveness, and then sprinkle in there a little bit of honesty with others, but more importantly, with the person in the mirror staring back at you. Because you can lie to the world, but don't ever lie to yourself. That's the worst lie that you can ever tell. And I used to tell myself those lies a lot. I used to justify and rationalize what I was doing because I thought I was being honest by telling people that I was an addict, and therefore it was okay for me to use. And those were just rationalizations and justifications for me to get away with doing stupid stuff, and putting myself in harm's way and putting other people in harm's way. Like, it's crazy to think that I have not driven a car since 2009 because I was so scared that I would potentially hit a kid or hit a van, or a ball would be bouncing out into the road and I'd be intoxicated or up on something or down on something and ruin and change the trajectory of an entire family's life. And now it's 2022 and I haven't been behind the wheel. Like, I just don't do it. I also live in major cities, so whenever I travel, it's also to major cities where I can use public transportation or Uber, or there'll be a car for me, so I'll be taken to wherever I need to go. Which even if it wasn't the case that me being an IT person and building the stuff that I've built, that I've been afforded these opportunities, I still would have quit driving in 2009 because something bad would have happened if I stayed behind the wheel. So that's what I hope. That's what I hope for you. Realize that you're multifaceted. Do not pigeonhole yourself into just being an addict, an alcoholic, whatever the case may be. Understand that you're multifaceted like a gemstone. Understand self-acceptance, self-kindness, self-awareness. Be introspective. Be able to sit in your feelings. Be okay with not being okay, because that's okay. And just take it one day at a time. And that's why I wish for you to stay safe, stay strong, and stay sober. I am Josh, the founder of the Accountability Group, and I am Josh in recovery, still battling the diseases of addiction and mental health.